first step to turn over from the bottom is to stay away from acquaintances. The writer Liu Yongbing once admitted that he had a particularly confused period. He lived a mediocre life every day, always wanting to make changes, but he didn't know where to start. Until one day, he saw a sentence and suddenly felt enlightened. When you are always surrounded by the few people you are familiar with, receiving the few views and cognitions you are familiar with, why do you think that you can have a better life now than you did in the past? A person's level and rank will not exceed the average of the few people he is most familiar with. A truly excellent person will not always accompany you to wander around at the bottom. And if you want to turn over from the bottom, maybe start by staying away from acquaintances. When it comes to Su Sun, many friends will think of him as Su's father, a famous great writer in the Northern Song dynasty. But in fact, from childhood to adulthood, Su Sun has always been an unlearned and unskilled dame. It was not until he was 27 years old that he realized that he could not continue like this, so he began to study hard in seclusion. Later, a friend came to visit, and the housekeeper declined, saying that the host was reading and could not see guests. The friend immediately said that he was not an ordinary guest, but an acquaintance of Su Sun. But the housekeeper said that the host had specially instructed that he could not see familiar guests. Zhou Ling mentioned in Cognitive Awakening that the three biggest factors that affect a person are habits, cognition, and the people closest. It takes several months to cultivate a good habit and several years to form a complete cognitive system. But how to treat the people closest to you is only a matter of your thoughts. Staying away from acquaintances will not immediately change your life, but it can force you to calm down and spend your time on things that can really change your life. Scholar Zhang Hongjie was still working in a bank. He invited a friend to his home. When he was about to get home, he stopped in front of an alley. And then he took his friend around for 10 minutes to get to the downstairs of his house. The friend was puzzled. Was the alley under construction? Zhang Hongjie smiled and replied, "At this time every day, my friends would play cards and chess in the alley. As long as I passed by them, I couldn't resist their invitation and always sat down to play for an hour." Therefore, for 7 years, Zhang Hongjie did not set foot in the alley outside the community, nor did he meet his friends in the alley. But it was precisely because he used the 2 hours he used to spend in the alley every day in his study that he finally achieved the transformation from an ordinary bank clerk to a well-known history professor. The reason why acquaintances are acquaintances is that you have not changed each other when you are together. Therefore, when you want to make a change, leaving acquaintances is your best choice. This is not indifference, but a kind of responsibility for yourself. There is a topic on Douban with over 1 million discussions. Why can't you always stick with acquaintances? There is an answer that has received countless praises. They only say what you like to hear. There are 2 real stories in the comment area. Netizen Mickey joined a startup company after graduation. He worked more than 12 hours a day, but his salary was only at the level of interns in large companies in the same industry. But at the same time, he also recognized the ability and philosophy of the company's founder. Just when he was struggling, a friend comforted him and told him not to compromise his life for work. He thought he was deeply inspired and resigned immediately, and soon found a company with easier work and higher salary. As a result, within less than 2 years, the startup company announced its IPO, and even the younger brother he had brought with him at the beginning achieved financial freedom. There is also an anonymous netizen who, after working for 2 years, felt that he should save more money. At this time, her colleagues would pull her to parties and shopping every day. Seeing her hesitant face, her colleagues would also enlighten her that when you are young, you only care about saving money. When you save enough money, you will be old and can't play anymore. This sentence hit her mindset, and from then on, she spent money lavishly and no longer had any psychological burden. Later, her father was sent to the hospital due to cerebral hemorrhage. The medical expenses alone cost thousands of dollars a week. At this time, the netizen was anxious because he had no savings and lost a lot of hair. Many times, those who have been with you for a long time are not intentionally hindering your life, but they have the same 3 views as you, and the advice they give is more inclined to make you content with the status quo. Be with acquaintances often. You will feel relieved to be understood and seen, but over time, you will stagnate until you are kidnapped by mediocre life for life. Doug Lyon, partner of Sequoia Capital, once said, "I never realized how poor I was until I made a little money." What does that mean? Doug used to run a store and made his business flourish with his own efforts. After accumulating a certain amount of wealth, he had the opportunity to meet some new friends in the investment circle. They could often negotiate hundreds of millions of dollars in a meal, which was equivalent to Doug's turnover in 100 years of hard work. He realized that he was the best in his past circle, but in the eyes of these people, he and his old friends were still at the bottom of the society. Working hard is not to show off in front of acquaintances. If you always associate with frogs at the bottom of the well, no matter how high you jump, you can't jump out of the well. French painter Miller was called a genius by people around him since he was a child, but despite the endless praise from his friends, his paintings were never in demand in the market. His life was even more impoverished, and he even had to exchange his most proud work for a pair of shoes worn by others. At the age of 35, Miller left the city where he had lived for many years. During his travels, he met Impressionist masters such as Corot and Trojan. In contrast to their works, Miller found that he had a big gap in composition, color, and lines, and the reason why his friends thought his paintings were good was because they had never seen better paintings. From then on, Miller became more enthusiastic about traveling around and actively made friends with painters who were better than him. In the process of communicating and learning with them, his painting talent was maximized. Wu Jun, former vice president of Tencent, said that when one day you feel that there are more and more confidants around you, you should be alert, because that is a sign that your life is tightly trapped. Noble people never appear in the image of acquaintances. Opportunities will not come from gifts from acquaintances. Only by leaving the environment you are familiar with and actively contacting people of higher levels can you see your narrowness and shortcomings and turn the gap into a driving force for progress. Management guru Drucker once mentioned a diving theory. There are small fish in shallow seas and big fish in deep seas. When you find that there are always a group of small fish around you, no matter how far you swim, you are still wandering in shallow waters. Life is like this. You can never expect those who live the same life as you to advance your life to a higher level. Leaving those people means you will enter a new stage. Follow and like it and encourage your friends.